Today, in the media conference with Lal Goel, which is brought to you by V4 News, Caru News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV India, News Gaon Se, Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan and Organ Donation India Foundation and Indo-Gulf Management Association. Our endeavor is to enlighten you with the current topic, and today's topic is not only current but very, very relevant. And the topic is the value of international internship. An internship is a period of work experience offered by an organization for a limited period of time. Internships are pivotal moment in everyone's life. They are often your first encounter with a professional environment where you come across the pressure of deadlines, meetings, and interactions with different people from diverse backgrounds. You must choose carefully. This will not define the rest of your professional career, but it is an excellent jump start to it. Even the great Steve Jobs was an intern at the beginning. He did a summer internship with Hewlett Packard and met his co-founding Apple partner, Steve Wozniak, there. According to Mr. William Knowlton and his team at NAFSA, an international internship is defined as, I quote, a short-term, 1 month to 1 year work experience with an organization abroad that allows participants to apply theoretical classroom knowledge in a real-world setting and gain a better understanding of a given field, unquote. Now, to discuss about the value of international internship, today we have very elite, knowledgeable, experienced, those who knows the topic well, panelists are with us. And I would like to invite my first panelist guest, and he is Mr. Rajiv Bhaduria. Mr. Rajiv Bhaduria is the Chief Monitor, Garware High-Tech Films Limited, Mumbai. After having an enriched experience of about 3 decades of working at big corporates like NTPC, Reliance, and Jindal at the CXO or board levels, he opted to get into impact creation mission. Currently, he is the managing partner, Ebullient, a leadership and L&OD outfit given to redefining the new age leadership, adaptive leadership driven by technology disruption being the predominant theme, coupled with the wisdom of ancient wisdom traditions, using the power of and rather than either or between modern technology and ancient wisdom traditions. Also, he is a co-founder at MyTransform, a global platform for career education, providing free access to Indian youth, addressing the underemployment and unemployment issues, which would be, if not addressed, the biggest pain towards reaping the demographic dividend in India. Welcome, Mr. Rajiv Bhaduria on our show. Mr. Rajiv Bhaduria, as you know, today the topic is the value of international internship, and you being associated with so many corporates, and you know the value of the internship very well because you are associated with the corporates, and the internship starts with the big corporates at least in India and or in other places also. But when we are talking of value of international corporates, we would like to know your views on the value of international internship. Mr. Rajiv Bhaduria, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Goel, for those kind words and in fact an introduction. And I would, in fact, firstly, thank you for having me here. Well, a very good morning to all of you. The idea today is that, we discuss this very important concept of value of international internships. Now, this has, in a way, the way I'll take it up would be that there is an element of international and there is an element of internship. Internships has been known to us. And as Mr. Goel has put it rightly, that, it's basically bringing into the usage of academic inputs that one would have received immediately during the college time into the workplace environment and see for himself or herself as to how things work and how things happen, and then maybe mold himself or herself according to the requisite environmental requirements. But before we delve into this very important topic, let me in fact change the term international into global in today's context. And global has a significance because what we mean by international is a global exposure to students, in fact, who would then be actually aligned to the requirements of the global business requirements in 21st century. So that's point number one. The other is internships are internships anyways. We'll see how exactly these would be made more relevant if there's an international and a global exposure given to students all over the world, in every part of the world, in practically every country, and more so those which are developing countries, because the work environment and the Western tradition has been actually, they've had a lead of about 250 to 300 years of industrialization, industrial growth. And so therefore the modern business environment is shaped by what we call the modern industrial, first industrial, second, third, and now possibly the fourth industrial revolution with the IoT and machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data analytics. So therefore, this has created an environment which has changed the workforce, the workplace, and the whole idea of work itself. Now let me in fact delve this in fact into more simpler terms. The problem currently of humanity is threefold. There are three problems of humanity today. One is the Paleolithic emotions of human. In the brain, in fact, we are primarily driven still by our Paleolithic instincts. The other is, of course, medieval institutions. Our institutions, and particularly in the developing countries, are not so developed, in fact, in conformity with the requirements of modern day industrialization processes, the business being handled in a very different way. And the third most important problem is God-like technology. Now, there is an interaction of Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and God-like technology. Now, this has created a very interesting mix, in fact, in the current environment where the context has changed. And the context is that of an ever-evolving, agile, audacious, in fact, environment where people are not required to get burdened by the past. You can get the benefit of the past, but you can't get burdened by it anymore. It will be like a treadmill. In fact, when you will be working out a lot, maybe you lose a lot of sweat and you'll reduce weight, but you'll not move forward if you continue to not do things which are in alignment with the current context. So having said this context right, this is an age where people have to adapt, upgrade, modify, and change themselves constantly in alignment with the disruptive changes that are taking place in the technological environment. And when we talk of technological environment, the need for internships, particularly that primary exposure to work, becomes very relevant for those students who have been learning these kind of digital age technologies, disruptive technologies in the colleges, and then they have to immediately see the impact of it happening, which is not happening equally all over. Firstly, it is not being developed all over at the same level. There are different levels of technological infusion and the business impact and the way businesses are run in alignment with the new age requirements. And of course, there are many places where it's totally absent. So therefore, to get the right context and become job ready, the students will not only have to kind of, do a lot of homework around what is disruption, what is disruptive technology, doing in fact to workplace and workforce itself, the new age requirements, the new skill sets that are required. And these are domain agnostic skill sets. Before one gets into the context of importance of internship, one must understand the very purpose of internship. And therefore, in the background that I have tracked so far, the requirement and the purpose that internship will hold would be to develop 10 senses of the individual. 10 senses, or what you call 10 intelligences, basically, in this context of fourth industrial revolution. And so therefore, internships gain a more important context here, because this is not something that's taught in schools and colleges. So what one has to learn, in fact, and be cognizant of would be the idea around intellectual quotient, the emotional quotient, the spiritual quotient, and the physical quotient. Now, these four kind of intelligence are very well known across and are being discussed by practically everybody. But there are 6 others in this context where this requirement of an initial exposure of internship becomes even more relevant, because they also, in order to succeed in this world which is in fact the ever-changing, ever-evolving and adaptive world, where there are new problems coming every day, and one is required to handle problems which we do not know currently how to solve. So you have to develop a mindset, and that is what is behind these 6 intelligences that I'll kind of enumerate now. The first one is, of course, entrepreneurial intelligence. Now, this is something which actually requires some bit of exposure, in fact, into the context in which businesses are being run today, or which they'll possibly be run tomorrow. And that tomorrow is not very far. The future has already arrived. So this entrepreneurial intelligence is something which is an immediate outcome of a good internship program. The other would be the strategic intelligence. Now, strategic intelligence is also not like others, in fact, taught in colleges. So with strategic intelligence would mean the traditional definition of strategy, of course, is that you look at transaction strategy and then at portfolio level thinking. But to talk of strategy in particular for students at the level of internships, what will be important? How do you perform in the current context and how do you transform? So performance and transformation simultaneously. Now that becomes very important, and that is what is going to shape the Indian businesses, the international businesses, and the global context of business, more so in the developed Western world. So strategic intelligence, entrepreneurial intelligence. The other, in fact, the context of global and international exposure, which will be very relevant, would be around transdisciplinary approaches and transdisciplinary intelligences. Now, transdisciplinary, why? Because the whole life has now become interconnected, hyper-connected globe. And this is digital fusion together, because digital technology has created a hyper-connected world where somebody sneezes somewhere, somebody catches cold, and somebody sneezes somewhere else. So the point is that in this hyper-connected, interconnected global world, the point is that transdisciplinary intelligence, transcultural intelligence, understanding of humans in a very generic sense, not just, unidimensional monochromatic lens, because remember, this is the age of diversity, equity, and in fact, inclusiveness. And it's something which has to do with a lot of plural understanding of life itself. Forget about the disciplines. So it's an exposure in the global scenario where transdisciplinary intelligence is the one which is to be developed, gains more importance in this localized and globalized world of today, where globalization, which means that, you are doing things at a level which is a regional level or maybe autonomous, at a unit level, but then it is influenced by the technologies, the design thinking of the global technology. So globalization would possibly then be possible if you have had a global exposure, international exposure, and then you work around places where we need to work anyways. So entrepreneurial intelligence, strategic intelligence, and transdisciplinary intelligence. But one, ladies and gentlemen, what's most important today would be that the common overarching problem of humanity today is basically ecology. We have reached a level of almost the 6th extinction event, which means there is 490 parts per million of concentration of greenhouse gases. And never in the history of the world, it was above 280. When we would, in fact, pre-industrial times, it was just, and not even pre-industrial times, even as late as 1950s, the concentration was not more than 280. So this is the common fundamental requirement where every student, every intern has to understand that before we even think of working, in fact, and get into the actual mode of working, one must be aware about the ecological, so ecological intelligence, about that reversal of global warming is what's required, not even zero emission. Because even if we start doing zero emission at the level today, it will remember be at 490 parts per million, which is unsustainable anyways. So look at what's happening. So this adds to the pressure of creating students who are interns, in fact, in a very different mold than we were teaching them so many years ago. So in the current context, this international exposure and the importance becomes all the more relevant, because unless and until the students who are coming into and then the workforce that is coming into play, they have a very different mindset, because what they expect at work is basically fun, freedom, flexibility. And given the context of ecological changes that may or may not impact the life even today, but more so in the coming future, and that coming future again has arrived. So this context of transdisciplinary intelligence and ecological intelligence, that becomes very relevant. But when, as you said, that the godlike technology that we have created creates a need for another kind of intelligence today. And that intelligence is probably the most important one in the context of philosophical and the Socratic intelligence that people also have to be given. Because when we are dealing with too much of technology, Paleolithic emotions being the governing factors, in fact, and medieval institutions are not up to date, the possibility is that this technology is going to be misused. And this has been misused. It's come up as this whole new technology has come up as in a very different context of controlling and surveillance capitalism. And it has developed a lot of other consequences for lack of business environment being the way it should be, where equity, diversity, and inclusion would become the principle. The whole governance is changing from top down, control driven, to bottoms up, inclusive, participative, more horizontally expressed, more democratized, more decentralized. So therefore, keeping in context Socratic intelligence is also something that these students who are getting just into the workplace, they have to be also aware of. And after all, the sixth and then the last one here would be the moral and ethical intelligence. Because again, there'll be questions which have to actually be decided now today. Previously, in our generation, possibly these questions were thought through by only those who were superior to us or at the top. But now difference is that leadership is not just positional leadership at the top. Every individual, those 7.2 to 8 billion people all across the world will have to be aware of the fact as to what are the consequences of their actions. The consequences of our collective actions so far have been disastrous. They brought us to the brink of sixth extinction event. So that becomes the very important aspect, where you will now have 10 these kind of intelligences which also have to be imparted to the interns, because of the fact that the work environment and the workforce requirement with a very different context, which is driven by these 10 intelligences, would lead to common domain agnostic skills that these interns will have to be imparted with. They have to actually come with a kind of cognitive flexibility that was never known to us. They have to have decision-making capabilities. They have to have negotiation skills, dealing with humans in a humane way, in an environmentally sensitive way. They have to deal with business. They must have critical thinking, creativity, and complex problem-solving skills. And this becomes the primary driver of what will actually determine the importance of these interns who would then develop into business leaders of tomorrow. So this is the context in which I saw that, because globalization is a context. Interconnectedness, hyper-connected world is important. Technology is almost godlike. It can have disastrous impacts if it cannot be handled well. But provided you have the right intelligences, the Socratic intelligence, the transdisciplinary intelligence, the strategic intelligence of performing and transforming at the same time, entrepreneurial intelligence, and the strategic necessary intelligence, along with the IQ, EQ, SQ, and PQ, that would be the determining factor. So the importance of internship, the initial exposure, the point of contact with where the students actually get to be initiated into what builds their, impacts their tender mindsets into what is going to come into future, becomes absolutely important. And before I end, I think there's one point which I would also like to make, is that internship has this basic purpose of getting industry and academia close together. And that's where I think Urvashi ji could be possibly making, and Margarita could be making a better point than me. So I leave it to them to discuss that. But I think I leave you with one thought, that as students are getting into colleges, they're driven by campuses, and they kind of, they're looking for internships in good organizations. The point that they must not forget now, they have an advantage also and disadvantage. So the advantage is that the whole context, the way it is changing, I've said the skill sets that are required are not linked to any particular domain. Cognitive flexibility, the dealing with humans, decision-making, negotiation skills, critical thinking, creativity, parallel thinking, all this stuff has to be learned in a very different way, along with the academic, the credibility or the credentials that you get. So the world is becoming more and more democratized, in the sense that credentials are losing their significance. The credentials of colleges, the credentials of degrees, the credentials of a domain in which you are. It is now transdisciplinary, domain agnostic environment that one has to be prepared for. So credentials are losing, competence is gaining in a sense. So people could be residing anywhere in the world because of this global connect, this possibility of internships, in fact, internationally global exposure, even online exposure at times, because at times it is basically virtual tour. You can have a tour of the place even without moving physically, because these could be possibilities in these times of disruption, and then particularly caused by this kind of pandemic and other such requirements. The idea is to get them exposure, get them have a feel of the whole thing. How is it changing? How is it working? And therefore, competence is something you get it anyhow, whether you go there physically, don't go there, explore the world, explore the digital space. go into the metaverse, go into the virtual world, go into the augmented reality. The point is that you have to gain competence, not credentials. So I think students also need not be disappointed if they're not getting exposure into only the best known companies. Because remember, these days, the best known companies are not necessarily the ones who survive the future. It is those companies which have this, iota of incorporating those values which will be relevant for a future ready organization, where they will have a culture driven by different mode of governance. Exposure to that would actually help them get this fun, freedom, and flexibility that they're looking for into the future. So they have to be partaking of it and also builders of the kind of future that they want to go. So I think with these words, I think I would like to end, in fact, and leave it open for question answers. That importance of internship is not only it has to be relived and revisited. It was always important. An academia industry interface was always some of the things that I have grown with. I was at Reliance for 20 years as the group president HR, and I had one of the best academia, in fact, and industry exposure and interaction. But the point was that's not enough in today's context. After 2007 and today, the world has changed the way I have discussed with you, that the problems of humanity, Paleolithic emotions of humans, medieval institutions which have still not taken up, and definitely not equally all over the world, and this godlike technology, we have to understand in a very, very different context. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Bhaduria, for giving the importance and the value of the international internship in details. I'm sure that the youth who are watching our show are getting now the sense that in what direction this show is going to take place, and he has described everything. But now my question to you is, how a student, because as you know that for internship, the student is raw, he has just having bookish knowledge or the knowledge what has been imparted by the college or university. How a student should decide about the international internship sitting in a developing country like India? After all, when we are talking of international internship, what is your take in that?
See, I think it's become easier, in fact, to go itself. In today's context, but like I would not be kind of talking much about my own platform Transform, because that would look like I'm trying to kind of because that's a free platform anyways. I don't have any financial stake in it, and there's no financial gain. It's free to the Indian youth anyways. So what we have built in the platform itself, the logic is like this, that the current problem, in fact, and if at all, in nations like particularly the Middle East, the North African states and the Indian subcontinent, which is the youngest nations, emerging nations. In fact, North Africa would be emerging as even a younger nation than the Indian subcontinent in about 15 years from now. So the point is that the youth of today will have to be aligned to goal setting. First of all, the goals have to be clarified, and therefore we'll have the role of it's not only the industry academia interface, but the whole value, in fact, and the methodology of education has to change. It has to be driven by not that you learn something, anything that you learn, in fact, generically, and then try to apply it. The point is that we have to know and let the students know from the very beginning as to this changing reality that I have described. That's going to be very different from the world, and you cannot just get the benefit of the past achievements. You got to not get burdened by it. So constantly you have to revisit your ideas. Unverified assumptions have to be verified. That fear of change, the fear of judgment by others, the fear of failure, and the fear of your own cynicism must go away. So therefore, the education pattern itself must impart the goal setting. That you have to set the goal in alignment with what you need, what is available, and what best is possible. And therefore, the digital space provides a lot of information. There are so many websites which would give students, of course, not a Google-like, which is absolutely generic, but there are like a platform Transform. There are several such platforms which are available that, we have a list of almost about 1,200 to 1,500 job spaces that are available, the kinds of jobs in the new emerging world. And then, so therefore, there is an assessment. A student can assess himself or herself and get to know what he or she is good at and what are the ones which are available in the context of which he or she wants to study. So having set your goal first, then you look at your disciplines that you're choosing. So it is more focused, and it is not that, you are having the cart before the horse. The horse has to be ready first. So if you put the horse in place, then the cart would come in. And then also there are a lot of institutes, information is available all across the world, in fact. And of course, my Transform platform has 25,000 global and Indian and the local organizations and institutions which are imparting educations, the course curriculums that are available in alignment with the needs of the future skill development also, and job opportunities. So you have to be job ready. So internship is a part of getting job ready, but job ready in a context, that job which is changing every moment. So the point is that by the time you achieve the job, study for it, the job nature would have changed. So what actually needs to be inculcated, and the students should not be afraid of, in fact, in going on the net, they're very savvy, they can touch upon all the information that's available. Only thing is that they should differentiate between what is information, knowledge, and wisdom. There is an overkill of information available, but therefore some bit of guidance from those who know are important. And therefore internship also, while they're doing, and even the college teachers and professors, and Professor Urvashi, of course, as a director like her, they are in a position to best to guide the students also. So all our teachers have to necessarily be exposed to this, and then this whole change has to take place. It must start from where it needs to start.
Okay. And the last, because I know that you have to catch a flight, your message to the youth.
Well, I think be prepared mentally to be flexible, because what's happening, the most important challenge before the youth of today, which was not there with us, that, we would take up an education stream and get jobs in accordance with it. There were jobs available easily, and then we could live through all our life in that job and retire. The point is that even if we would change jobs, we would not change the trajectory. In today's context, there is a research which shows that almost 72% of the youth today, who are in fact before the age of 35, they would have changed their trajectory of work also, which would mean that I'm qualified in a particular domain, but I do a job which is not related to it. So in this world, the message would be that do not be, in fact, perturbed by the changes, the kind of disruptions that are taking place. Having that mental cognitive flexibility, that is the most important way to determine. So you have to have confidence in yourself, get that competence. Don't be concerned unduly about those credentials that you need not get only to those institutions. Even like organizations like the biggest organizations like Google, in fact, IBM, Apple, and others, they are now going for not campus recruitments, but they kind of advertise on their sites, and they conduct their own tests of skills that students have, and any person sitting anywhere on earth can apply. And if he or she is credible enough or competent enough, irrespective of the credentials the institute he comes from, whether he has had even those basic educations or not, would not be required and relevant in the future. So I think future has both good news and bad news. The bad news is that there are information galore. There's too much of information available, but one has to sieve out what is actually the wisdom part of it, from the data, information, knowledge to wisdom, and make use of that. That is one thing where guidance is required. And the other thing is that, of course, if you don't accept this fact, if you don't have flexibility, then of course, disaster is yawning at you. So I think students have a great future, and all that they have to be is to realign themselves with these new requirements, be ready for constantly reinventing themselves, constantly reinvigorating themselves, revisiting their assumptions, and be ready to let go what doesn't work. Don't have that fear of, open your mind to not having fear of failure, because there's nothing called failure for students today, I would say. It's only a learning, as long as they learn not to repeat the same mistake twice. It's a learning rather than a failure. So they should celebrate that failure. I mean, Edison failed 10,000 times before he got the bulb in place. So the point is that he said, every time I learned. And the other is fear of judgment by others. That's gone are the days. I mean, that students, in fact, are more free, in fact, to now be fear of judgment by others, and don't develop that cynicism within you that, my God, there's so much of disruption. We have to develop that ability to see through the madness, find the method in this madness around. And I think everything that will go well, provided you have worked well with these principles of not being afraid of failure, open to experimentation, exploring the unknown rather than exploiting the known. Now, that is what is important, because all of us, in fact, by the students alone, all of us are still bent upon exploiting what we know and extracting that. This whole economic system is built on that theology. So the point is that you have to explore the unknown. and don't be afraid to explore the unknown. So we have to, as students, develop that Columbus in ourselves, not just be guided by what Newton had already interpreted. So we are reinterpreting what the interpreted world is, but we need to reinterpret the world in a very different context of delving with the unknown. So that is my one message: explore the unknown. Don't be unduly, in fact, perturbed about exploiting the known. There are many who will exploit the known. You have to explore the unknown. And this is the age of startups. This is the age of developing, getting to unicorns. And so therefore, my best wishes to the students of this context, in fact, and they have the whole world to win over. They have nothing to lose by exploring into the future.
Explore the, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajiv Bhaturia. For
my pleasure. I think I wish I would have stayed.
Happy journey, also. Happy flight to you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Dr. Urvashi Makkar. Dr. Urvashi Makkar is the director, IMS Ghaziabad. She is PhD in marketing and an executive program in human resource management from IIM Calcutta. She is having 26 years of experience in teaching, research, and training. She is an academician par excellence with a knack of entrepreneurial spirit and a persistent passion for continuous learning. She is a widely traveled academician having leadership certifications from Harvard University, UK India Education and Research Initiative, 𝐂𝐀𝐼𝐒, besides many others in the list. She is an order of innovative learning and an expertise in transforming management institutions by focusing on organizational development. She has created a niche for herself in the domain of management education. Welcome, Dr. Urvashi Makkar, on our show. Dr. Urvashi, you have heard what Mr. Bhaturia has mentioned, and he has given lots of details about the international internship. Now, we would like to know your views on the value of international internship. Dr. Urvashi Makkar, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lal, and for this extensive introduction. And I must congratulate you and your team for choosing this highly relevant theme for this conclave. I must appreciate that the theme goes well down into the contemporary requirements of a management education. And I must congratulate Mr. Mohan Agrawal, Mr. Rajiv, Ms. Margarita to be part of this panel. It's really great to listen to Mr. Rajiv's viewpoint and his focus on that how the current scenario for the B school students, or per se any particular program, the subjects or the profession whatsoever is going to be taken off by the students. Undoubtedly, today is an era of exploring into the unknown. And I'm sure that all of us are talking on the same page, that major drivers of global change are currently reshaping the world in this century, and in no institution undoubtedly will be completely immune from this major transformation going on throughout the world. And without saying it goes, the ability to transform will be critical for all educational institutions to cultivate so they can shape, respond to a changing world of education. In fact, I have always been very strong believer in that to define is to limit. We can't tell our students that they have to have the boundaries to their dreams. There is an immense power of big dreams. And when the students have the bigger dreams, I'm sure that they can plunge into the unknown. Only then they can explore something extraordinary. And that's where comes very important role of the international internships also. I used to talk about always that a shark in a fish tank obviously is a metaphor which must be kept into the mind by every single learner, student, or a professional. A shark in a fish tank will grow hardly 8 inches, but in the ocean it will grow more than 8 feet. And it's only about the environment which is deciding the growth of the shark. A shark will never outgrow its environment, The same is true for every single student and learner throughout the world. Whatsoever is the ecosystem they are being studying currently, sometimes that is going to be instrumental in their growth. And undoubtedly, when a student opts for the international internship, surely he or she is plunging into the different ecosystem, entirely different environment, and that helps into the growth. And surely if the learners are going to hang around with the same-minded people, sometimes the growth can be hindered. So surely with the proliferation of social media, abundant product information, online purchasing, ability to switch preferences quickly, consumer sovereignty is becoming a reality. And if we per se consider the education sector also with the same metaphor and consider the student's experience, we can't ignore that. And education sector has started already seeing a sea change in the universities, and in one of the recent KPMG education research, which has been released last month, they have argued that the ecosystem should be developed into a more complex scenario for the students' experiences, which adds into the learner experience and personalized experiences. And surely that becomes your survival mantra in terms of being an educational institution. So what sort of the learner experience we are proposing to the students become very important aspect. And in the last 2 decades, many higher education systems have fostered the competition between providers to create quasi markets, as those systems have moved from elite to mass participation also. But the choice of student was typically constrained by resources, geography, information, and now these barriers to choice are being overcome due to this global scenario. So these schools today are not only giving the degrees, they are into building leaders for tomorrow. They are having very big responsibility towards the society, that what kind of leaders they are producing. And here comes very critical role of learning agility, which is essential trait for any leader. And it is the ability to remain open to new ways of thinking and to continuously learn new skills. We have long known, all of us, that a major difference between successful people and those whose careers falter is into the ability to make meaning from the experiences. A recent Columbia University research has shown that leaders who refuse to let go of entrenched patterns of behavior, or who do not recognize the nuances in different situations, tend to derail. They just falter. Whereas successful leaders continue to develop on the job and throughout the life. And we now know that these successful leaders are learning agile. That is, they show the willingness and ability to learn throughout their careers and their entire lives. This understanding has created a revolution in terms of how we view leadership potential and how we treat management education in the B schools. In the past, in fact, generally we used to try to predict an individual's potential for future success based on exclusively on past performance and demonstrated skills and abilities. So our focus has been on the past performance of any individual. That is going to be the criteria for the potential success. However, very interestingly, this approach is inherently flawed. Research has shown that fundamentally different behaviors are required across organizational levels, and that the behaviors that are effective at one level do not necessarily lead to success at the next. Moreover, very interestingly, the rate of change within organizations is greater than ever. Thus, leaders, learners, students are constantly required to adapt. And again, here comes the role of the international internships as a student of B school. When we are discussing the issue of long-term potential of the students, the learners in the business schools, then an individual's current skill set is of secondary importance, as undoubtedly they are going to be equipped to respond to the future challenges based on their learning agility, how much they are ready to adapt to the changes. As a result, our focus must shift to finding and developing individuals who are continually able to give up skills, perspectives, ideas that are no longer relevant and learn new ones that are coming up into the market. Basically, learning, unlearning, and relearning. That's what is needed. And when we talk about this cycle of learning, unlearning, and relearning, the institutions are not an exception. Every single B school also have to learn that they have to create an ecosystem of huge learning for the students and the learners, in which the international internship can be instrumental in creating learning agile leaders, which focuses on basically innovation, like where students are not at all afraid to challenge the status quo. Moreover, it can lead to the performing. They remain calm in the face of difficulty and they are performing. And very important trait which can come out of these internships can be the reflecting, that the students take time to reflect on their experiences, how they are impacting their skill sets, their future, and their fitment to the market. So undoubtedly, the market readiness of the students can entirely be dependent sometimes on the type, quality of the internships. And very interesting trait which can be created through these internships can be the risking ability, that the learners purposefully put themselves in the challenging situations, and which can become the instrumental trait for the success tomorrow. So in this light, I believe international internship opportunity would be adding to immense learning experiences. And when we talk about internships, how it's different, how international internship is different, why you should do the one, that's a question which must be taken seriously. Because there is no doubt in this claim that internships are pivotal moments in everyone's life, specifically a management graduate. They're often the first encounter with the professional environment, where they come across the pressure of deadlines, meetings, interactions with different people from diverse backgrounds. And they have to choose it very carefully. This will not only define the rest of their professional career, but it can be an excellent jump start also. There have been instances among us, a lot of students whom we have taught in our campuses, that they get the pre-placement offers even during these internships. And they can become the instrumental moments to transform their lives, their profession. And I'm very sure that there are so many of the significant benefits of these international internships. Like they put you much ahead of your contemporaries and your peers. And the biggest advantage comes that they expand the global network of the students. As a young professional, just imagine that there is nothing better than having connections in the industry. Whether you are a current student or a recent graduate, the people you meet during your internship will be the key contacts for you in your career. And if you hope to move abroad in the future, they become even more essential. And undoubtedly, that becomes a great asset for any professional tomorrow. Similarly, I believe that it grows the global understanding of the students also. When they are choosing a possible international internship, they need to think about their career goals, how they can project themselves as a professional with a global outreach, and surely that can become a wonderful opportunity to understand the global scenario. And besides that, to understand the global scenario, it becomes mandatorily important for the students to learn even a new language during the course of international internships. And being bilingual is an extremely desirable skill today in the global context. As more and more companies begin to operate internationally, young professionals with foreign language skills will be at the forefront. So hence, an international internship is the perfect opportunity to immerse yourself, whether you are a complete beginner or have taken classes before. And besides that, there might be a great advantage that you can get to know a new business culture. So besides having a great global networking, understanding the global scenario, and learning a new language, I'm sure it's an exciting opportunity to get to know about the new business culture. And just imagine a youngster who leaves the home country. He's going to be constantly exposed to customs, practices that are different from what they have been used to in their home country. Regardless of how many internships or jobs they have had at home, there is nothing more rewarding than being able to navigate a new business culture. Business etiquettes differ from country to country, and successful global professionals will be familiar with the ins and outs. So that's very exciting, I believe. And this fact in itself, that how they are going to respond to this global internship by traveling to the different destinations, can in itself a great learning experience. And I'm sure that if any student who loves traveling and exploring new places, an internship abroad is a perfect excuse to see more of the world. And they'll not only get to live and be immersed in a new city, they have all the opportunities to travel and explore during their time in the internship. Now, besides these, there are more offerings in the international internships, I believe, because we have seen that how students have learned during these opportunities, even of 45 days or 2 months, that the immense skill development happens among us, the students. In addition to the soft skills like communication, leadership, and organizational skills, they are definitely going to sharpen their industry-specific skills, and the best place to apply what they have learned in their courses is definitely in the workplace. And after completing such kind of international internship, they are going to show future employees that they not only understand the theory, but they have the technical and market skills to back it up also. And I'm very sure that international internships give them the opportunity to learn from the problem-based learning, in which the real problem is shared with them, and they have to solve that problem in the ecosystem in which tomorrow they have to build their career. So that's why the immense skill development is there, besides having definitely out of the context communication skills. They learn the democratic communication skill, they learn the assertive communication skill, and interpersonal skills, no doubt. No arguments over here are essential to forming good relations, both in the workplace and outside of it. And one of the top benefits of internships abroad is that they enable the students to develop their communication skills in a diverse cross-cultural setting. The ability to communicate effectively with people from different cultures is one that will serve them well throughout their career. Now, apart from these benefits, I think there are so many other top-ups which students get, like they gain excellent references. So many of the external network is created who can become their great reference for the future life, for the development as a profession. And I believe that in today's competitive job market, many young professionals face a very tough paradox. And the paradox, interestingly, is that you need to have experience in order to get experience. Just imagine. So obviously, having an international internship serves an extremely precious experience to enter into the corporate sector. So this kind of internship allows the students to get their foot into the door and make the job search much easier and more rewarding, I'm very sure. So I believe that if the opportunity to do international internship comes along to the way of any student, they shouldn't hesitate to take it over without any single minute's thought. And we can see there are so many benefits of interning abroad, including experiencing different cultures, work environments, learning trends, customs of the different country, as well as making, of course, new network. And this will make them hugely confident and skilled professionals after they go back to the home. And I'm sure these benefits taken together, they must be consolidated in their future journey as a professional. And I believe that the B schools should facilitate. They should give the opportunities, platforms to the students for such internships in the coming days. And I believe once again very strongly in the power of big dreams. The students have to have unbridled, boundaryless dreams. Once they'll do so, I'm sure they'll plunge into these domains very easily. So these are my initial thoughts. I'm sure we are trying our best in our campus also at IMS Ghaziabad regarding the same perspectives to develop among us the students. I'm hoping this will be a continuous journey which will go on for the coming few more years also. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Urvashi Makka, for giving all the benefits of the international internship and values. And according to her, there is no doubt this is the best thing for a student to do. Thank you very much. I will come for the question in the next round, not now. Now I would like to invite my next panelist guest, and she is Miss Margarita Andriva. Ms. Margarita is the freelance business education consultant, Dubai, UAE. She is a teacher, supervisor, counselor, and trainer for almost 14 years. She is experienced in teaching in small and large groups, along with organizing of learning and working process, conducting course programs and educational materials. She is experienced in facilitation of learning and self-development process. Her interest is in economics, finance, investment and psychology, freedom of learning, life coaching, etc. This variety of experience and skills enable her to provide high quality teaching, training and counseling. Welcome, Ms. Margarita, on our show. Ms. Margarita, you have already heard what Mr. Bhaduria as well as Dr. Urvashi has mentioned. Now, we would like to know your views on the value of international internship. Ms. Margarita, please.
Yes, hello, Mr. Goel. Thank you for this introduction. Yes, I would like also to share my views, and I hope I will not repeat my colleagues. It was very brilliant. They shared brilliant ideas, and Mr. Bhaduria stressed out global level. So I would like probably to share my opinion from some different level on this topic. So more from like personal level, because I would like to say that, of course, there the value of international internship in professional level and interpersonal level. This is like getting professional development, business networking, international networking, like this experience adds to CV of each intern. So of course, interns can get international work experience, get skills and grow professionally. This is professional level. And I would like to talk about probably personal level and the value of international internship from personal level. So as soon as students appear in international internship, they travel abroad, of course, they appear to be in completely new environment, which is different from their everyday life in their native country. So they appear in some sort of, I would say, stress situation. And so all their organism systems, I would say, become activated. So they start the process of self-learning and self-development, I believe, along with professional development. So first of all, they have to become more focused on here and now and check out the challenges that they meet and their proper responses to these challenges. They have to understand how they will solve the problem arising and do it in a quick way. So they have to switch from, I would say, probably automatic way of thinking, because when we live in our usual environment and we follow our everyday routine, we somehow live in sort of automatic way. And when interns appear in completely different environment and diverse environment, intercultural environment, of course, they appear in unusual situation. So they have to become focused on here and now, first of all. So this is a challenge of their awareness, of their self-awareness, and they have to, sorry. Sorry, I just.
It's okay if you wish to. If you wish to, take time and consult your notes. That is fine. Margarita, I understand totally.
Thank you, thank you. So yes, they have to focus on here and now and look for solutions which are up to this moment, not be focused on their past, not be focused much on their future. They have to be focused on today. Next thing is that when they appear in situation when they are focused on here and now, they all the sorry. Okay, I will continue from some other point. So another point to what they will have to do, the interns, is they will meet the process of redistribution of their personal resources, I believe, because they get out of their usual environment. And probably if we talk about resources, there are like external and internal personal resources. So usual everyday environment with relatives and friends, it's a source of external resources for students and interns. And when they travel to another country for this international professional experience, they are out of their usual environment. So there is probably lack of some external resources right here and now as soon as they appear in this new environment. So they have to make some sort of redistribution and switch probably to their like internal resources, to know themselves better, to understand what qualities and personal strengths and characteristics can help them in this fast changing environment where they have to learn some new skill, new ways of actions, and sometimes, yes, changing skill, learn new, forget like skills which are not appropriate anymore, meeting new people, and so on, so on. So they have to understand themselves better in the way how they respond better and be active in a better way in this new environment. Because as well as with high diversity, it appears probably sometimes language barriers as well. So it's not that easy, and that's of course a challenge for students and interns, and they have to know themselves better and redistribute their resources. Another point I would like to talk about students and interns in the process of international internship. They will have to be open to experience more than usual in this process of exchanging with culture, with professional qualities, with some professional corporate culture, and so on. So they have to be open to new experience, new ways of thinking, new ways of learning, new ways of acting. So of course, it's the part of process of self-development and fast self-learning. So they have to be open to this. As well, interns will have to check out communication skills and probably have a look on themselves, on their way of acting, of their way of communicating with people, learn some new patterns and exchange with others. So all this, I believe, will be a process of huge self-development along with professional development, and this, I believe, is one of the important values of international internship, that interns will have a huge challenge to answer all these questions arising, all this situation they have to solve. So they will have an ability answering this challenge. They will have an ability to know themselves better, to recheck their goals, their deep values, their personal strengths and characteristics, and to be to know themselves better. Because there is a quote that in a stressful situation, you will not fly to the level of your dreams, you will ground to the level of your preparation. So this, when students appear in a completely new environment, of course it's a stressful situation, and they will be able to know themselves better, to check out, to ask themselves, I would say maybe global question, this is the process, I believe, of really huge self-learning and self-development as well. And along with all mentioned values on a global level, on professional level, I believe that this self-development on a personal level is very high value of international internship. This is what I would like to add to what my colleagues have mentioned.
Thank you very much, Ms. Margarita, for giving your views, and she has highlighted the personal advantages of the international internship for the students, as well as she has also mentioned the challenges which the international interns, the students have to face for the international internship. Thank you very much, Ms. Margarita, for giving your views.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite my last but not the least panelist, and he is Professor Mohanlal Agarwal. Professor Mohanlal Agarwal is the former Professor of Marketing, Innovation and Management, IIM Lucknow, XLRI Jamshedpur and California State University, USA. He is president of Indo-Gulf Management Association. He is US Fulbright Fellow Boston, EFMD Fellow Paris, and British Council Fellow London. In 2019, he was ranked among the 251 most fabulous global education leaders. Welcome, Professor Mohanlal Agarwal on our show. Professor Agarwal, you have heard all the earlier three panelists, Mr. Baduria, Dr. Urvashi, as well as Ms. Margarita. They have given their views about the value of international internship. Now, we would like to know from you your views on the value of international internship. Professor Mohanlal Agarwal, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Goel Sahab, and warm welcome and greetings to my fellow panelist, Rajiv, who is not there at this moment, but a wonderful friend and an excellent speaker himself. Then, of course, Dr. Urvashi, who is both an academic par excellence as well as the director of very, very big impact in a business school, and also, good friend from Russia, Miss Margarita, who is doing a great job here in terms of his consulting and advisory services. I'm grateful to each one of them for giving us such a wonderful start about what is, why, and way forward for international internship. Without doubt, internship is the most important aspect of anybody's learning. Whether that person is coming from family or family-owned organization, family, or whether he or she is coming from service class or just coming from any other situation. The value of internship can never be overestimated. It is absolutely awesome necessity in one's life. This is the thing I would say, awesome necessity, because requirements sometimes can be painful, but here this requirement is beautiful. So that is why I thought that I should emphasize this part. If we look into the value of internship, and then I'll talk about international internship in a minute. If we look at the value of internship, the whole world can be very easily divided into the way that we know East and the West. If we look into the East and see that how internships were seen by us for time immemorial, then probably we were way ahead of the West in terms of internships, because we were dominated by family business, we were dominated by family-owned businesses, and as a result, people were doing what we call now part-time studies in a very, very big way at that time itself. That is full-time study, part-time work at the same home business where we were. And it was more, I would say, prevalent into countries like China, countries like India, countries like, Sri Lanka, so many, places where people had business orientation right from, I would say, year 4 or 5, when they will go and sit in the store of their parents and learn by watching them. Of course, it was not a formal internship or anything, but it was still internship in terms of its benefit. If we look into the West has always been dominated by formalization of business organizations. And as a result, the concept of internship was seen as a way necessary to get to the top. In other words, the CEOs would even start from what they called at that particular time a mail room. Mail room is where the internal and external communications of the companies will be sorted out, and then people will be delivering it to the right people at that time at every floor. And it was very important function. Even if you look into some of the Hollywood movies, many CEOs, they started from the mail room. What was the goal? The goal was that start humble, see the micro situation of the company, get to know people because you're delivering mail to them, and then you are also, in a way, connecting with them. Obviously, the era of internet, the era of direct messaging, the era of WhatsApp, it has totally closed down, I would say, mailroom in most of the organizations, and therefore that internship opportunities at the mailroom is gone. But they started the second thing that they called, and that second thing was coffee boy. You know, the coffee boy. The coffee boy it was a pejorative name for internship, where a person will again start humbly, will get coffee to the bosses, to either as executive assistants or something, so that they will watch, learn, observe, and then sometimes, if they get lucky, they also see or get to see some decision making themselves. Now, this is how organizations work or worked even today. Even today, they work like that. Like, for instance, internship at the White House. Internship at the White House is exactly the way that I have described. That you become what is known as fly on the wall, see what is happening here or there, get coffees to the boss. Sometimes see how boss is flaring up and like that. A fantastic movie on this experience was on Devils Wear Prada, where the legendary Meryl Streep and her interns, they were role playing those particular things to see that how internship helps the person, the managers and all that. Of course, that was a little bit exaggerated and over the top comedy, but still it was bringing out the essence of it. Later on, one more movie came, which was perfect in terms of internship, where a very, very experienced speaker, actor, he will become an intern and start his life at a very, very late life as an intern. Now, again, that movie became extremely successful because this is where they were trying to bring out that aspect. So what I'm trying to say here is that the value of internship was seen differently in the East and in the West at that particular time. Today, if we look into this particular situation a little bit differently, then probably we will say that this internship has gained greater heights in the East. Greater height in the East. Reason is that we were very, very at the bottom of that particular experience. There was no structured relationship. Companies didn't like internship because they felt that they were interruption to their work. They were interruption to their own goals, on their own agenda, and therefore many times even they dismiss them by saying, listen guys, don't disturb me. Whenever you want, you can come and I'll give you the internship certificate. In other words, the requirement was fulfilled in a shoddy way. I call it a shoddy execution of the internship. And that's the message I will be talking a little bit more, that how internship helps corporations also. So far, we have been obviously talking rightly, whether it is Dr. Makar or others, that what is the benefit of internship to the students. I would like to take the other side, that how when the internship benefits the companies which are providing internships, in other words, corporations or businesses wherever they are. And I will also provide another variant of corporations, which is the social organizations, that how social organizations should also accept interns much, much more than they have been doing, right? Because the benefits to them are also very clearly articulated, very clearly available, and they should be cognizant of those things as well. So going back to that particular thing, that how this thing has become more important and has become probably incrementally important in the West, is because in the West, the education system allowed what they called a gap year. A gap year is for those students who would like to travel, take a break from their studies, undergraduate programs, that is, will go to different countries, travel, work, travel, and then come back by having a global experience. This kind of thing wasn't available to the East for several reasons. One is that we did not have the concept of a gap year. In fact, if any student was wanting to do that, he or she was advised against, because our structure didn't allow that. Our structure didn't even appreciate that, never mind allow. And our structure didn't do any of those things to encourage that. And then, of course, there were resources. Resources were limited. People did not have enough money to go around with it. Neither the government, allowed those kind of travel, discretionary travel, because of our again macro resourceful constraints. So those kind of things were there. While in the West, they would actually provide money, by the states will provide money to the people to, or the citizens, to go abroad, work, study, and come back and join as if nothing was broken in the time. Even today, if I have to say, three countries where I had the pleasure of teaching, Finland, Denmark, and Sweden, all three of them have a state provision for the citizens to go abroad, do internship, and come back, and part of that internship expenses will be borne by the government. Here, nothing like that is there. So therefore, again, these are the constraints. So in other words, that it is left to us. Who are us? Either the students or parents or the family. It is left to us to take advantage of this internship. Of course, business schools will do a lot more, because that is a kind of requirement for them to place the students at some point of time. And placement is one of the biggest indices of the success or performance of any business school or even engineering school from that point of view, that how many students were placed or provided an internship, and especially paid internship. So those kind of things are there as indices, but this is not the occasion for that. So what I'm saying is that we have to understand that. And when I say now I am expanding this we to include the organizations also, the organizations which are providing internships. In other words, I'm saying here, and this is the message of mine today, that organizations should also engineer, support, and implement a robust internship programs. Why? Because of this globalization. So here comes that point of global internship. These days, companies are not earning enough in their domestic countries, in their own home, than they are earning outside. And we take into all American MNCs, whether it is Nike or McDonald's or Pepsi or anything, they are getting only a decreasing portion. I'm not saying tiny portion, but I'm saying decreasing portion of their income from their home country, and they are getting much more from outside their country, which means that they need to hire global interns or hire interns globally. I would also go to the point of internationally, which Rajiv was very cleverly, differentiating between international and global. I agree with him, but still I would say that there is a very major difference for which international interns point was raised, and that is because the difference between international interns and global interns is that global interns work on similarities within the world, and international interns work on differences between the nations as an intern. So if I'm going to Malaysia, Pepsi, then I'm not going to work the similarities between India and Malaysia as far as Pepsi is concerned. I will take into account the differences that exist between Malaysia and India, even though the product is global, and that is a Pepsi. So both have their own place, and therefore juxtaposing them together perhaps will be losing the significance of that difference. So that was the thing. So why international? Very simple. The world is big place now for everyone. I mean, even in spite of what is happening in Russia, Ukraine, and elsewhere, you can see that everything now has international or global implications. Whether it is the selling the gas, or whether buying the gas, or whether importing the gas or exporting the gas, or how ONGC and GAIL are now facing issues relating to what is happening in Russia and Ukraine. So each and everything has global implications, global impact, global connections. That is why global internships are important. And fortunately, and I have to say this with all responsibility, fortunately, MNCs have been much more open for hiring global interns than the domestic organizations in any country. And this I'm saying in any country, not just in India, but even in UAE, I see that that the UAE-based organizations will be slow to hire interns than the multinational companies which are working in the UAE. So there is a natural need. So what is that natural thing? I'll just mention 4 things and then I will close. Number one benefit of this internship to the organizations is that they are getting a very, very fresh perspective of a talent who is unencumbered, who is not limited by the limitations of the past, by the limitations of their experience. Because experience could also be enriching, but experience could also be, I would say, imprisoning people. So we should not become that. So that is, number one. Number two is brand building, that they build a brand because they have given the kind of benefits to them. Number three, very important, is that this is the best way to know who is their next employee and how they will be able to get there. And number four, we should not discount that you are able to optimize the cost of operations, because these interns work for less but do not work less. So from that point of view, organizations stand to gain. So with all this thing, I would like to say that let them not see it as a corporate social responsibility internship, let them see it as a corporate requirement. And that corporate requirement is for their own benefit, for their own growth, for their own innovations. So internship is not a charity that they're doing. Internship is what they should be doing as a requirement. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Lal Goel, for giving your views. And he has also given how the international internships are beneficial for the corporates. So they should also consider this is not as a charity. Thank you very much. Paucity of time. Now, my question goes to Dr. Urvashi. Dr. Urvashi, as Professor Agrawal has mentioned, and don't you think that the business schools should give this international internship exposure to their students, add in the curriculum? They can charge something more, but the advantage is that because, as Professor Agrawal has detailed, he's mentioned that the financial condition of the student. So if the business school will try to give this exposure, don't you think it's beneficial for the student as well as for the business school? Dr. Urvashi, please.
Definitely, Mr. Goel, I so much agree to this point that international internships can become critical platforms for the growth of the students, not only in terms of their professional career, but in terms of their personal journey of learning so many of the critical skills for the success. Undoubtedly, the corporate readiness of the students is function of various critical skills like the continuous learning, innovation, risking, and surely all these skills can be imbibed through the international internships. Because of the change of the ecosystem which the students experience.
Dr. Urvashi, time is short. I just want to know whether the business schools are ready to do this or not.
I must say that there should be not more than few business schools who are providing such ecosystem to their institutions, who are giving them the platforms even to plunge into the international internships. There is so much to do in this direction, and I would appreciate that if these platforms, the visibility of the opportunities are much more to the business schools. That's what is needed. We have seen that there are not many facilitators for the international internships, which can definitely be created.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Urvashi. Now my question goes to Ms. Margarita.
Goel, sorry, it's a very important question. Please allow me just 10 seconds. Huh?
Okay.
I would answer that question very, very directly. No. Business schools are not ready. They are not prepared. They are not engineered, except few numbers. And that is because of their traditional thinking. That's all I would say.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Margarita, my question to you is, international internship restrict to only those students who are well versed with the language of that country? From India, if the business school wants to send to Russia for internship, or to China, or to any other country where they are not well versed with that language. So don't you think it is a very restricted thing only to the West from India, they can go to where the English is speaking countries are there. What do you say about that?
Well, I believe that language could be a restriction, but it's not that I believe it's not that strong restriction, because if someone knows at least a basic or intermediate level, he can start learning as soon as he appears in the environment. He will know better. He will on everyday basis, he will communicate with native speakers, and it will be extremely fast growth. So I believe it could be restriction, but not that strong.
Okay,
Something
thank you very
that
much.
can be overcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, Professor Agrawal, your message to the youth about this international internship. 30 seconds, please.
Sorry, can you just essence one more time? Sorry.
30 seconds.
No, before that, what was the question?
I said that your message to the youth on this international internship.
Okay. Thank you. My message is very, very simple. Act locally, think globally. In other words, that see the world as your. I think Dr. Purvashi gave an excellent analogy in the beginning, of that shark in the tank. I thought that's the message I would also give.
Okay, thank you very much. So today, viewers, you have seen that how important is the international internship. All our experts has given the view, and they are of that view that there is lots of benefits, the values are there. So one should see, but the only thing is, as Professor Agrawal has mentioned about the financial thing, but I'm sure the government, the business schools, and even the parents have to take a collective decision how to send their children, the students, for the international internship, for the benefit globally for them, the students, as well as for the country, because it's a very, very important thing to get the exposure in this global era. Thank you very much. And today's program has been live telecasted by V4 News, Caru News, V4 Stream, Malnadu TV, India, Newsgaon se Samvad Sarokar News, Bharat Post News, Gyan, as well as to shown live on Facebook and YouTube. And in our endeavor to bring to you every day new topic and media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Tomorrow, our topic is the big fat Indian wedding. And our panelists are Advocate 𝐂𝐀𝐑𝐔 𝐍𝐄𝐖𝐒, social activist and Supreme Court lawyer, Agra, Dr. Rukhsana Hassan, renowned psychologist, trainer, coach, motivational speaker, special educator for early childhood education and development, Bangalore. Ms. Parul Jindal, Director, Narayani International School, Member, Advisory Forum, Agra, Aligarh, Smart City, Aligarh, Advocate Nidhi Banga, Central Government Council, Delhi High Court, New Delhi, and Dr. Priyadarshini, Mrs. World Supermodel 2019, Chairperson, Harsha Medical, Modern Diagnostics, Modern Medical Centers, and founder, Soul Beat Wellness, Mangalore. So please tune in tomorrow for media conference with Lal Goel at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mohanlal Agrawal. Thank you very much, Dr. Urvashi Makkar. Thank you very much, Ms. Margita. And thank you, Mr. Baduria, for giving your views and lighting. And I'm sure today's program is very enlightening for the youth, as well as for the business school, as well as for the government agencies or the government, so that this type of international internships are very, very useful for everyone. Thank you all the viewers for watching our show. Thank you very much.